August 4th, and even though my tagline says the finish starts with the first piece of wood cut, we're going to start the finish now. And the finish now is the painting. The framework is all done. Everything is done. It's been about 2 weeks, and I haven't really worked that hard on it. It's a pretty simple process. And what I'm going to do today is I've been asked to do a mixing video. So what I normally do is, like, when I go to the paint stores, I get an empty can, and we get our dope by the gallon, and I've shaken it up. You got to make sure that it's shook up. Try to get any of this particles out of the rim there. I don't think I have any strainers in up here. Normally I run it through a strainer. No, unfortunately I'm all out of strainers. Oh, but that won't stop the first coat's process. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a mixing session first. If I can get the can open. I'm going to have to ask the paint store for an opening key again. I'm going to be here shortly making a trip over to Wick, so I'll take a camera over there and we'll, on our dope buying spree. It's about 35 miles from here, so that's not the paint shop that I frequent most regularly. I usually have this stuff here delivered, but I have to go over and pick up a large order, so to save on the shipping, I'll just make the run myself. Anyway, got the can open. Let me open the window here. Okay, got the window open. So what I do here is I get the empty can and I do it all by eye. And these are the first coat mixtures. You really don't want any contaminants in there. Now there's 100 other ways to do this. It doesn't matter. This is my way. You'll have a nice finish if you do it my way. And I put about about 50% in the can. just because we have a gallon of dope doesn't mean we're going to use a gallon. So right now, in the quart can we have a pint. And I use all butyrate, and it's all Randolph. It's been a while since I finished one of these cans, got lots of dust on them. Try to keep the contaminants out of the paint that you're mixing. But for this first coat, we're not going to fill this can up all the way. We're going to fill it up 25% more. So this is a little bit thicker than 50-50. This is our first coat. First two coats. Now we're going to have to prepare this brush before we can go on. So we'll cover this up. Now there's been a video back that I showed the preparation of a brush. Let's see here. Some 80 grit. Now you can skip this step if your brush doesn't have any paint on the handle. But if it has paint on the handle, I suggest you do this. Yeah, we got most of it off. It's still pretty, the paint on it is still pretty tough, so it'll get softened up when, if it gets a little thinner on it. But for the most part I have it off the shank here, where it's going to go into the dope. Next, we'll get our part out we're going to paint. Actually, this, I'm going to have to take it out of the garage, blow it off. This is a piece of foam that I got. It's a Harley-Davidson CVO tank packing piece. The tank goes down in there and they put it in a box and send it to you. I don't know whether you're going to be able to find this or not. That piece of foam cost about $6,000 because that's what a CVO tank paint set cost you. Now this elevator stabilizer, if you remember in the videos, I've already got 2 coats of dope on it, so we're good to go here. Same with the rudder. But we'll probably add one more because it's been plenty of time for the first coats to dry. But what we're going to attack today that way we got a mark. Anyway, take the flaps off of it because the flaps get done separate, because if you do them on the airplane you could glue the flaps to the wing. You don't want that. These are flaps done with my hinges, but we'll set them aside. And get a piece of paper towel. Wipe the dust off. Now I had debated using a superfill before, because we're going to need superfill on the tips to blend these before I put the paper on, but I think it's better to do the superfill after, and the reason being is that the dope will make the wood harder, at least as hard as the superfill, so it will be easier to blend the two together. And now it's just repetition. I'm going to start to put the dope on it. It gets one coat, and then we're going to wait until this evening and put another coat on it. We won't be able to get the covering today. I will be doing a covering video as well. Well, in this session, I'm going to show you how to cover with Polyspan one more time, and how fast it really goes. So this is not thinned 50-50. This is thinned, like I said, 50% of the quart and then 25% more of the thinner. And this is my substrate clear. We only get to do 1.5 more quart of clear for the whole airplane. So we're going to keep adding thinner to what we have here for the substrate, and then we'll make up a new batch for the top clear after the paper's on. I know what this wing weighs now. It's at 12.7 ounces with everything. We'll get a number on when it's covered, when it has 2 coats of dope on it. We need to really be under 15 ounces to be in the in the usable range. I wish it was 10, but for an airplane this big, that's an impossibility. So warm up here, the dope is drying right up front. This is our coat of dope that the covering will stick to. You know, on the forum I see from time to time a lot of people having problems with the tape. With the tape pulling the dope up, or the paper or whatever. Well, if you do it my way, you'll reduce your chances of that. And I do it this way every time. And I usually have 0 instances of tape problems. So we got one coat on one side. When I get this side dope in, I'm going to shut the camera off. I'll turn it over and do it again. You want to make sure that you get them both sides done in a rather quick fashion. You don't want to have one side dope and the other side of the wing not dope for a very long period of time, because this dope softens the wood and it will pull it into a warp. You want to make sure, you have to wait till it's dry enough to flip over, but that only takes a minute or so. Make sure you get the cat strips. You guys need to let me know what you want to see, how I do things, because without your input, you know, I just don't have an idea on what to post. You know, the paint mixing thing, and this basic application of the first, I mean, these are things that I take for granted because 50 years I've been doing this, and you know, it's just like second nature. This dope is dry on the outboard side, almost dry. In my videos a while back, I showed the drilling of the paintbrush. This hole's been plugged. There we go. And when you get done, you just hang your paintbrush in a can like that, and that keeps the bristles from bending over. So we're going to have to wait a few minutes before we can turn this over. Almost done, so be back in a short. Okay, time lapse about 10 minutes. Turned it over. Make sure you take all your hatches and doors out Because if you don't, and you dope over them, you'll glue it all together. Make sure you get coverage inside the hatch doors, and you got to be careful on that too, because paint builds up, and they may not fit when you try to put them back together. So just a thin coat, enough to seal it, because we're going to airbrush in there. Because I make all my clearances very tight. I've seen at the Nats guys make those clearances a 1/16 of an inch. I might make mine within thousandths. So we're getting the all the woodwork. Make sure you get inside the trailing edge too, because we're going to have to stick down the paper inside there. And in this case it'll be Polyspan. Okay, we have 2 coats on it. They've been sanded with 320 in between. It's absolutely smooth. The whole airframe. Now, you probably can get away with just 2 coats on the wood to attach the paper. But I'm going to add one more. So, it's going to be 3 coats of dope. Only this one we're not going to sand. This one is the sticking coat, so to speak. So get it on evenly. Try to make it flow out real good. We're still on our original mixture of dope. We've used, it's back down to a half a quart now, which is actually a pint, because we only used half. We filled up half of the can with unthinned dope and the rest with thinner, or 25% more thinner. And when I get done with this coat, we're going to fill the can up with thinner. Still on our original pint of dope. And that will be all the dope that we get for the substrate. So we started with a pint. We use that complete pint, no matter how thin it is, for the substrate. And the other pint is top coat. All you get is 1 quart, so it really doesn't matter. As long as you only use 1 quart, doesn't matter how you thin it. You know, where you want to apply it at. But this is, like I say, this is just my method. It's worked for me over the years. You get a half a pint of color. That's all you get. And as long as you do it in that proportion, you'll have a relatively light finish. Of course, the sanding, you gotta sand. Part of the procedure here is making sure that it's all level, flat. You have to start with good woodwork where the joints aren't huge gaps, so you don't have to use a lot of filler or glue to fill those gaps, because that's all weight. Your painting allowance is 1 quart of clear, unthinned. Like I say, the thinner doesn't really matter because it all evaporates. It's just the vehicle, it's not the pigment. So if you have a quart of raw 100% dope and you thinned it with a gallon of thinner and you sprayed it on the airplane, that whole gallon, it's only going to weigh what the unthinned dope weight was, because the thinner all evaporates. So this is the 3rd coat, just before the covering. And this went together, you know, I said that I was going to wait or whatever. It's so warm up here, the dope is drying at a rapid rate, so we're going to be able to cover here in a short bit. Then, of course, it'll be a week or so drying, so we can get ready to put the top coats on it. Just for the simple fact that we won't be painting, we'll be working on controls and alignment and getting it together, maybe the cowl, all the other stuff while this is drying. So, time management. And I've taken my time on this airplane. I haven't really pushed it very hard. We've put 2 coats of dope on the flaps, sanded them with the 320. Those are probably good. We don't need a 3rd one on that, I don't think, because we're not going to be using Polyspan on the flaps. We're going to use soap pan. So now it's just a matter of this drying, so we'll be back in 10 minutes so I can turn it over and do the other side. See you in a bit. Okay, so what we got here is we got 3 coats on the airframe, and they've been sanded between every coat. And I started with this much dope. No, let's see, half a pint. Half a quart of dope filled up to here with thinner, 75%. Now it's back down to 50%. The thing is, I'm going to take the thinner and we're going to fill it all the way to the top. So now we're back to a quart. it's still the original half a quart of dope. So we're really thinning it out quite a bit. And you want to use this thinner part to attach the covering with. And it runs, I can't remember, when I was a painter in the Navy, we had viscosity meters and all that stuff, and so many seconds, but I just use the paint stir stick and stick it in and see how long it takes to run off. It's probably thin enough to spray, but we're not going to be spraying, we're still brushing. We're going to attach our covering, and we're going to use this as the substrate for the rest of the model. Now that's all the dope we get for the substrate. That's it. So you have to use it sparingly. I told you this would be a Polyspan and paint video. Now Tom Morris, he gives you some instructions for applying Polyspan. I don't believe I've ever read them. I've just used it, or done it myself. And one thing you want to make sure is that the shiny side goes up. I can't explain to you how important that is. So we're going to overlap the center. Usually I overlap it quite a bit. This time we're just going to overlap 1 inch. I want that inside the fuselage. I don't want it outside on this particular job. And I don't know why, but Polyspans are real tough on blades. So we're going to get a scalpel blade here. I need another scalpel handle. I broke my scalpel handle, so we got to use this just like a razor blade by hand. But be very careful. These are really sharp. We'll leave about 4 to 6 inches overhang so we can pull. You want to leave enough overhang on the front and the back. So that you can pull. So I'm going to make a hole where the pivot is. I want to get this to lay down the best we can before we start here. And I'm going to straighten up this cut in the center. This is not necessarily necessary, but something I'm doing. That's close enough. So now take your super thin dope and brush down the center. I always like to overlap the center because this is where it's joined, and you want to make it double strong so we get 4 layers of try to get all the wrinkles out you can before you start heat shrinking it. The more wrinkles you can get out, and the less you have to shrink it, the better off you are. That goes true with monocoat, I believe. I used to monocoat back in the 90s, or I have done some monocoat airplanes back in the 90s, and they were okay. Alan Brickhouse would, try to convince me to use the monocoat. He had that finishing system of the Rust-Oleum, and that just wasn't me. I've always been a dope and paper guy. Wingtips, that's the part that everybody has a problem on, and I'm going to move the camera and show you again how to overcome the wingtips. This is really very easy materials to work with. I don't understand why some people have problems with it. It's real simple if you follow these steps. Part of doing a nice wingtip is thinking about, hey, I'm going to have to cover this wingtip, so building it so that you can cover it and have it come out nice. If you build it with all kind of goofy angles, it's going to be difficult. So now we have, it's basically stuck down. We'll get out the heat gun. I just use a monocoat heat gun. I do have an industrial heat gun as well. And we'll start. We have a problem wrinkle here, so start at the problem wrinkle, see if we can get it out first. Yeah. Light heat in the center where the bays are, because we're not really tightening it up all the way because we have to get the other side on, so we don't have a problem now. I just want to get the big problem wrinkles out before we go any farther here. Very hot. So that basically got the covering on. Let me move the camera because we're going to have to show you the tip. So I'll be back in a second. Okay, camera's been moved. Took a second. Dope is still tacky, but not really. Now you look at this tip and you think, well, God, that's ugly. Well, yeah, it is. But we're going to fix it right up. Doing the inboard bottom first. put a little fresh dope on it because we're going to boil the dope right onto the tip. Sorry about looking at my back there, but I'm trying to get to the best vantage point on how this works. Okay, so we got the dope on there. It's wrinkled up. Heat gun, and I'm pulling the Polyspan around the corner as I put the heat to it. And you'll see it bubble up there. I'm not sure if you can see that on camera, but and you just work it around. Oh, it's hot. Try to keep the heat gun off your fingers. And if I can't get it to stick down, I'll use some CA to get it to stick. We're going to have to add some more dope, but didn't have enough there. It takes a little bit of practice, but you can get it to go around the corner perfectly. And that's it. That's how to make a perfect wingtip. It's not hard. Just stick it down some more by holding tension on it. Hopefully it doesn't loosen up the paper and it come up before you get the heat on it. We're just drying the dope to make it stick down now. Now with light heat, you come back in and heat up the rest of the material. But I don't want to do that yet. I want to do the other side so that we don't warp the wing. So now what do I do with my scalpel? Well, fortunately I got a box of them. And this was no time lapse. You saw exactly how long it took to do 1/4 of it. You know, I didn't work on it between moving the camera, so to speak. Sure it's all down. Trim around the edges. Now that the camera's moved, I'll do the top without cutting the camera because it's already moved and you get to see the tip done again. The only way that you can actually do it and get good at it is practice it, but you know, a few times seeing it might help. Might have to stand in front of it here. I gotta trim this edge. There, you can see it. This area right here, there's always wrinkles, but at least it's inside the fuselage because it transitions it into a compound curve. It's going back the other way, so you're going to have to cut it and work it and to get it to lay down. But as I stated, it's inside the fuselage, so it doesn't matter, and that's pretty good. Dope the edge down so it doesn't move. Remember, this is our thin, super thin dope. And that's it. Put another coat on the perimeter. Kind of boring video, and that's why, I don't know, these videos, I hope they help you. I can't teach you how to sand on a video, and sanding is the most important part. Okay, we'll wait for a few minutes and let this dope dry that's on the perimeter so I can turn it over, and then I'm going to restart the camera from start to finish. we'll do the other side so you can see how long it takes, which is not very long. But one side's done. Be back in a short. Okay, we're going to try to do this start to finish so you can see how long it takes. 5 minutes went by so I could turn it over. I've cut the piece of poly tissue, make sure that the shiny side is up, laid it out where it lays smoothly and relaxed on the airframe. We're going to first dope down the center section. And then go around the perimeter, just working the wrinkles out. Like I say, you don't want to build wrinkles into it. It makes it harder to get out. You want it to lay relaxed on the airframe. Never dope the cap strips until the covering is shrunk. Until actually the whole wing is covered. You don't dope cap strips. What that does is, one, it'll make it harder to shrink. Two, it puts undue stress on things. And pull out any of the wrinkles that you can be without heat first. It shouldn't have any wrinkles in it. You should be able to lay it on so that it's pretty wrinkle free. And let's move the camera down to the tip. And we're out to the tip again. So remember what I said, you have to build the tip because you know you're going to cover it. You don't want to make it any goofier than you have to. So we're going to dope around the tip here, pulling the tip, the wrinkles out best you can. Work it around. I want to make sure you guys can see this, because the tips are the hardest part. Now we got it flooded pretty good with dope, and yeah, it's pretty wrinkled, but we're not worried, because now comes the heat. So there's no set way to start from any certain spot. I just start where it looks like it needs to be started at. Put it on high heat, pull it down. You'll see the covering just start to pull, and the dope start to boil. And that's when you want to take the heat away. Otherwise, you'll burn through the covering. Then you got a problem. You have to so we didn't get all the wrinkles out yet. So we're going to go back with the dope, and we're going to soften it up. Anybody that's seen my airplanes in person can tell you the covering on it is immaculate. So this method does work. hot. Got a problem there. Might have to get the CA out. Doesn't want to stick. There it is. So now we're back with the dope. I like to wrap my wing, meaning that the covering is cut on the underside so there's a gap, or so that there's no gap. It's like it's a bag that's sealed. And we have a wrinkle up here. No problem. Boom, gone. And we have to hit it again. It's another wrinkle in another spot from another direction. And we see some wrinkles right in here. Okay, no big deal. That's it. We got it. Knowing how much heat to use is going to take some practice, because you will burn it the first few times. So let's get another blade. For some reason, the Polyspan just eats the blades up. And the suggestion is, if you have a wrinkle, like there's a small wrinkle on the tip right here, before you cut away the extra, get that wrinkle out. Otherwise, you have nothing to hold on to. And it went away. You can feel it pull. It'll give. I don't know where this stuff came from, but boy, it's whoever found it for covering. It's really great stuff. A little heavy, but we won't complain about that. So now, leaving enough to go underneath the wing, we're going to cut this off and dope it down. You don't have to do it this way, just the way that I do it. so that there's no seam on the leading edge. Go ahead and cut that off and dope it down. So we've doped down the front. Let's finish out the trailing edge. Now this particular model I can't wrap the trailing edge because it's got a concave trailing edge, so I have to end it right at the end. I can't pull it around as much as I'd like to. Because I just don't believe it would sit down in that concave. Remember, before you cut it off, make sure that it's completely tacked down. If I cut it off, I would have nothing to grab onto. We're going to have to put some superfill in this crack right here because it's just low. But I wanted to do that after I got the covering on to harden it up so I wasn't sanding into the wood. I'm going to have to use the CA here. It just does not want to lay down. Always around the lead outs is tough. There, we got it. Close enough for now. We'll move on to the next spot. Take these eyelets out again. Should have the eyelets out to begin with. Notice I'm using CA there. It just didn't want to lay down or stick down around the eyelets, so just use some CA to hold it down. It's still pretty wet with dope, so we'll come back to that in a minute. Get another blade out. Don't be afraid to change blades, because it just tears up blades. So there you have it. I'm going to end the video there. It's the other side is just the same procedure. And that's how I do the poly tissue. It's not a mystery. Not very hard at all. But you do have to think ahead. You know, this is going to be a poly tissue wing. We have to make the wing tip a certain way. We can't have any goofy edges, hard compound turns. Kind of work it down. It's all about patience. It's you know, I make it look easy, but it's taken a lot of years to figure out how to do it right. Okay, that's a no-no, what I'm doing there. I'm only doing it because it seemed like it had some dirt up there. Do not sand this stuff, period. You'll be sorry. We're going to have at least 3 coats of dope on it before we even start mildly sanding it. Otherwise, you end up with hair. And you don't want that hair. It will not cover. Make sure that it stayed straight. It did. We'll come back and trim this up. So, I'll be back when I get her finished up. When I get it finished covering, we'll go from there. So, see you in a short. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about where I'm at now. I showed you how easy the wing was covered. And it didn't take too awfully long to do. Whatever the video is how long it took. And it picked up an ounce covering it, unfortunately. And it's only been sitting a few hours. Maybe it'll gas off a little bit now. But what I'm doing now is with 320. I'm kind of just knocking off any of the fuzzies or whatever. If you sand too much, now without any dope on it, you'll raise the hair on this. So don't use anything more aggressive than 320. And I just switched to 400. And I want to go around the tips to kind of smooth those out. Tomorrow we'll put another coat of dope on this. We're not going to add any more dope to it tonight. We already, I already kind of hurried it as it is. I put the base coats on the wood and covered it in one day, where normally I do it in 2 days, but it was so warm here today the dope was drying to figure out we could get away with it. And I thinned it out pretty good. Anyway, I go over it, and any of the problem areas I just spot. Now we got fuzzies coming up there because I broke the dope skin, but that's okay. We should be good to go on this airplane. It would have been nicer to have the wing at, an ounce lighter or so, but it's very hard with a wing this large. But, you just, everything weighs. And so you got to be careful now what we're going to do. I mean, we can't keep piling the dope on because every coat of dope is an ounce on the whole airplane. I mean, every coat here on the wing would probably be a quarter of an ounce. But the trick is to put it on and sand it off. But we're sanding a little quickly. So right now I'm just spotting troubled areas, the wing tips. Of course, this is a process. It'll take more than once or twice to get these tips to, it looks pretty good there. Laid down real good. I still have to put some, before I go to bed tonight, I'll go ahead and add the superfill right here and let it dry, and then by tomorrow I'll be ready to sand. We don't want to add a whole lot of stuff to this. When I use a DC 540, I'm going to tape off the center section and just shoot the primer on the wood. We'll sand, smooth it out, reshoot it, whatever it's going to take to get it perfectly smooth. I still have to tissue the flaps yet as well. But I'm happy with it, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to load this movie up. And we'll get a tip, get a shot of the tip here so you can see how the tip turned out. You just can't get any better than that. I'm real happy with it. Put a little more dope on this tip. But that was all from thinking it out before covering it.